Donald Trump made it clear this weekend that he's leading a pro-coup movement intent on dismantling American democracy. First, he promised to pardon the January 6th defendants if he wins in 2024, and then admitted in a statement that he wanted Mike Pence to overturn the 2020 election. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. For a year now, Trump and his cronies have insisted ludicrously that January 6th was not an insurrection and that all they were trying to do was follow the law. At one point, Trump even referenced a debunked theory that Thomas Jefferson had supposedly used his power to make himself president.
Mike, had he had the courage to do what Thomas Jefferson did, but a minor version. You know, Thomas Jefferson, he kept Georgia. You know that? He didn't send it back. There was a dispute. Hear ye, hear ye. The great state of Georgia is unable to properly calculate its votes. Thomas Jefferson was sitting where Mike was, right where Mike. You know what he said? Hear ye, we will keep the votes of the great state of Georgia. He didn't send it back to the legislature. All I wanted, and a lot of people wanted Mike to do, is send that back.
He's never read a single book in his life, so all he knows about the Founding Fathers is they said, hear ye, hear ye. He probably thinks those powdered wigs were their real hair. I asked my barber to give me the George Washington, and when I looked in the mirror, I said, Mario, you've done it again. Hear ye to you, Mario. Also, you never want to hear the words hear ye with that accent. He sounds like a used car salesman doing a commercial for a President's Day sale. Hear ye, come on down to Bobby Bada Bing's. Buick of Bay Ridge, our prices are so low, every time we sell one, it's a Thomas pain in my ass. Oh! But one thing you can always count on with Trump is that eventually he'll tire himself out and just confess. He can't help it. He just blurts it out. He did it with collusion, he did it with Ukraine, and that's exactly what he did over the weekend in a statement where he admitted he wanted his Vice President Mike Pence to overturn the election.
Former President Donald Trump all but admitting he tried to overturn the 2020 election, which he so decisively lost. Here is a statement that he just put out. If the Vice President, Mike Pence, had absolutely no right to change the presidential election results in the Senate, despite fraud and many other irregularities, how come the Democrats and Rhino Republicans like wacky Susan Collins are desperately trying to pass legislation that will not allow the Vice President to change the results of the election? Actually, what they are saying is that Mike Pence did have the right to change the election, and now they want to take that right away. And this is key. He added here in the statement, unfortunately, he didn't exercise that power. He could have overturned the election.
There's no crime Trump could commit that he wouldn't later confess to. He just exhausts all the excuses until he decides, screw it, I'm guilty, baby. If it had been him instead of OJ, the quote would have been, the gloves don't fit, but you don't need gloves to stab a guy. But this is how it always is with him. He stuns you by confessing and then hopes we'll just shrug and let it go. It's like if in one of those crime dramas starring Hugh Grant, the cops went to his house in the first episode, all amped up and ready to grill him, and he just said, yes, I did murder my mistress. I'm frightfully sorry. It won't happen again. And then they'd have to say, oh, well, then I guess you're free to go. So Trump is now admitting he wanted to overturn the election, which of course resulted in a violent insurrection that has so far produced more than 700 arrests. And earlier this month, the most serious charges yet were filed in that investigation when members of a right-wing militia were charged with seditious conspiracy.
11 members of the far-right anti-government extremist group, the Oath Keepers, have been charged with seditious conspiracy.
The leader of the far-right extremist group, the Oath Keepers, is due to appear in federal court. Stuart Rhodes is one of 11 defendants who the Justice Department charged with sedition on Thursday for their involvement in the January 6th insurrection.
Sedition is a very serious charge, especially for a group with a name as dopey as the Oath Keepers. That sounds like a company that sells purity rings to high schoolers in Utah. At one meeting, someone sent a message to the others that said, someone can tell me if I'm crazy, but you are. Oh, wait, sorry, there was more to that. Let's go back. Someone could tell me if I'm crazy, but I'm planning on having a backpack for regular use and then a separate backpack with my ammo. I mean, I think we've all been there, right? You know, you're about to lay violent siege to the Capitol and worry that having two backpacks will make you look stupid. The police I can handle. The fashion police, on the other hand. Listen to these seditionist morons talk about accessories is like listening to the Joker say, is the purple suit too much? I mean, aren't I already saying the same thing with the green hair and the clown makeup? I'm just so over this. Also, what do you mean a backpack for regular use? Are you also going to night school? Yeah, I'm just doing malicious stuff for now, but eventually I want to do air conditioner repair. Or is regular stuff snacks and waters? And if so, just a tip. If you have one backpack for ammo and another for snacks, make sure they look totally different. Hey man, can you toss me a Kind bar? Sure thing. No grenade! Why'd I pull the pin on a Kind bar? These dangerous idiots genuinely seem to think of themselves as revolutionaries. At one point, according to the indictment, someone pitched a plan to use a boat to cross the Potomac, although clearly they hadn't really thought it through. Can't believe I just thought of this. I can't. Oh, sorry. Again, there was more. Let's go back. Can't believe I just thought of this. How many people, either in the militia or not, have a boat on a trailer that could handle a Potomac crossing? If we had someone standing by a dock ramp, one near the Pentagon, for sure, we could have our quick response team with the heavy weapons standing by, quickly load them, and ferry them across the river. First of all, how many people in an Oath Keepers conference call have a boat on their trailer? I would assume all of them. I mean, that's like me walking into my writer's room and asking, hey, does anyone here have coffee breath and crippling anxiety? The issue isn't no one having a boat. It's far more likely no one having a boat that's good at sneaking up on people. They probably all have those big-ass fan boats you drive illegally in the Florida Everglades looking for snakes you can trade online for Bitcoin. I'd love to see one of those do a Potomac crossing in the dead of night. Remember, the element of surprise is essential. Keep your voices to a whisper, and success shall be ours. Now let's push off. Ooh. Turn it down! Also, I love how that sentence starts. Can't believe I just thought of this. They're planning a violent coup to overthrow American democracy, and they sound like they're booking a layover in Dallas. Honey, I can't believe I just thought of this. Why don't we stay with my Aunt Ida for a few nights? What do you mean she's crazy? Because she has 2 backpacks? But what is for regular stuff and what is for coup stuff? Oh, so now coups are crazy. Anyway, these guys were all charged with sedition, the most serious charges yet in the investigation of the coup. And apparently, if Donald Trump gets his way, he'll pardon those people, a new promise he announced at another one of his unhinged rallies over the weekend.
If I run and if I win, we will treat those people from January 6th fairly. We will treat them fairly. And if it requires pardons, we will give them pardons because they are being treated so unfairly.
Man, it is pretty sickening to see a crowd full of people cheer for the January 6th insurrectionists. Like, at some point, you just have to admit this is a pro-insurrection movement. If you're at a party and someone starts doing cocaine and someone else says, hey, can I get some of that cocaine? And then someone else says, I went to the bank on the way here to get new $100 bills for us to snort that cocaine. You might turn to your spouse and say, I think we're at a cocaine party. Oh, maybe it's not just a cocaine party. Maybe there's some other stuff. Hey, Marty, is there a cheese board? Oh, bro, I can't even think about food right now. Yeah, it's a cocaine party. Also, you guys need to make up your minds. Was January 6th a false flag staged by the FBI? Was it infiltrated by Antifa? Or were they pro-Trump patriots who deserve pardons? Because for a year now, pro-Trump liars in the GOP and on Fox News have been claiming that either Antifa or the FBI or both were actually responsible for the violence on January 6th.
Some of the people who breached the Capitol today were not Trump supporters. They were masquerading as Trump supporters, and in fact, were members of the violent terrorist group Antifa.
There are some reports that Antifa sympathizers may have been sprinkled throughout the crowd.
We don't know who all were the instigators in this, of these horrible things that happened today. I think a lot of it is the Antifa folks.
There could have been FBI assets, federal assets, that really animated the violence.
It's been clear for a while now that the Department of Justice probably had some role in the events of January 6th. It's obvious.
The rumor is that even possibly Antifa insurrectionists possibly could have infiltrated some of these movements and maybe instigated some of this.
Oh, is the network called Fox Rumors now? Tucker's set should be a row of high school lockers. The rumor is Becky's cousins, friends, sisters, boyfriends, uncles, nannies, roommates, husbands, chiropractor is a member of Antifa. And if that's true, isn't it possible that the dog did eat my homework? Also, you may have noticed Sarah Palin in that montage. Man, it's nice to see her back when she was just spreading misinformation instead of potentially spreading COVID at New York City restaurants. Can you imagine you were as careful as you could be, got your shots in your booster, and you finally decide to venture out and overpay for dinner in a wooden shack in the bus lane, and you get COVID from Sarah Palin? Oh, man. Only in New York. Anyway, the point is these people can't even get their story straight. And Trump has even been singling out some of the kooks and weirdos who advocated for the coup at his rallies. For example, you might remember that MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell met with Trump at the White House holding notes that said something about declaring martial law. And at his rally over the weekend, Trump singled out Lindell for praise.
He's no longer the pillow man. He sells everything. Mike Lindell. I think he's the single greatest purchaser of advertising I've ever seen. I said, Mike, I don't care how many pillows you sell, and now you're selling slippers and sheets, you're selling everything. I said, I don't care. You can't afford that much advertising. I think you know what he does? He waits till the show is just ready to go on. Any empty slot, he says, I'll give you $200 for it to Fox.
Just what that crowd was there for, the details of strategic ad buying. Man, I'd hate to be working the ad sales phone when Lindell calls mid-show. Hello? This is Mike Lindell, and it looks like Hannity's about to go to commercial, and I want the slot. Oh, we usually sell those a few months out. Do you want the $200 bucks or not? Also, I love how blown away Trump is that the guy who sold pillows branched out to slippers and sheets. I mean, it seems like it should be a little more out there to get that level of amazement from Trump. He's not just the pillow guy anymore. He sells everything. Crossbows, snake food, X-rated snow globes. You love those. You're in for a treat when you shake one of Mike's globes. The snow moves around, and what you see, you can't believe what you see. Still, it's exciting that Lindell is doing slippers now. If they're as comfortable as his pillows, it probably sounds like this when someone wearing them walks through a room. You know, you buy them for spouses you think are sneaking out in the middle of the night for affairs. Honey, are you going somewhere? No, just to the bathroom. No good stinking slippers. Honey, come back to bed. Okay. Ugh. Pillow. I think that qualifies as a play. I think I just did a play. Can it get a Tony if it's on TV first? Well, look into it. It doesn't get any clearer than this. Trump is confessing that he wanted to overturn the 2020 election and promising to pardon the rioters if he wins in 2024. It's openly a pro-coup movement. They're publicly declaring that they're going to try to do the exact same thing next time. The only way they could announce their intentions any more clearly is if they started every sentence with,
Hear ye, hear ye.
This has been a closer look. God's Love We Deliver cooks and brings over 2 million meals a year to men, women, and children living with HIV, AIDS, cancer, and other serious illnesses, and they need your help now more than ever. If you're watching this online, you can hit the donate button. Stay safe, get vaccinated. We love you.